Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John, and it's time for a review of the third full-length album from Japanese kawaii metal band Babymetal, Metal Galaxy. Babymetal, the Japanese kawaii metal group, as they often like to call themselves, they've been at it for a good solid around 5 years now or so, and we are finally coming up on the follow-up to Metal Resistance, their last album, and unfortunately their final album with backup vocalist Babymetal, who left the group last year around this time due to health concerns and also wanting to pursue a solo career. It is now only Metal and Metal, and they bring in a trio of backup singers known as the Avengers. It's all very goofy and camp and a lot of fun, but this has been a big shake-up time for the band. Originally, they started out as a part of a more traditional sort of Japanese idol group, having expanded into the more metallic Japanese sort of anti-pop sound and expanding upon it even further here with Metal Galaxy. As some of you that follow me may know, I am a huge fan of Babymetal. My name is Jonathan Compton, and I am the kawaii senpai of YouTube. So while the group has definitely gone through a big shift in losing Yui, it's interesting to see that on this album, thankfully, her absence here hasn't affected too much overall. See, Babymetal, they've gone through some changes, but this record still very much sounds like a Babymetal record. There hasn't been a degrade in quality here. This is still Babymetal, and it's still ferocious and absolutely searing. The instrumentation on this record remains as good as it's always been, and in fact, I can appreciate whereas Metal Resistance, we saw the band sort of expanding and going into a lot of different genres. They toyed with a lot of different soundscapes, a lot of stuff that wasn't on their very first record. That album seemed like them trying to expand and trying to sort of lift themselves into a new direction, but part of the issue with that record was its lack of cohesion. It felt very scatterbrained, whereas this album, there does feel like a bit more of a sense of unity. Things are much more sonically consistent. They seem to be going for more of an astral, kind of spacey sort of tunage. Tunage? That's probably not a word. There is a lot about this record that I can compliment, sincerely. Even though the album does feel more cohesive, there are some really interesting moments of experimentation, particularly on songs like Shanti, 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 with the Middle Eastern kind of Indian vibes. A heavy use of the sitar is layered all throughout that. Again, like I mentioned, one of the things I admire most about this record in particular is its more cohesive feel. Even though there is experimentation, it doesn't go too far out of left field, even for a band that's already as left field as this. It's very, everything kind of fits together a lot nicely. And there are a lot of interesting features on this album as well. The last album had a couple of features, just here and there. They weren't necessarily a big part of it. But on this album, there are a lot of people who show up and make little appearances that really add to the dynamic. There's F Hero, he's a Taiwanese rapper. He busts a few bars on one of the tracks, does an absolutely spitting excellent job. I can't understand what he's saying, but I'm here for it. There's also Alyssa White Glues from Arch Enemy on Distortion. Her presence is, even though it's a bit more of a backing sort of, she just lays down some background screams. They are very proficient and well done. We also have a cameo from Joaquin Bourdin from Sabaton on the track Oh Majinai. That song in itself has like a pirate shanty sort of thing going on. And he's just, again, his just absolutely visceral, yarg, 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 yarg. It was absolutely fantastic. Again, juxtaposed with the cute, adorable, kawaii sort of vocals we usually get from Babymetal. I love the sense of Again, the spaciness of it, the use of a very, very occasional trap elements and some electronica and some things, but they're very scant, they're very scarce. I do love how just absolutely in the stars this album feels. It's absolutely fantastic. Though there are some things I didn't necessarily care for. Lots more English speech on this record. As you know, Babymetal is a Japanese band, and whereas with a lot of Japanese popular music, it's not uncommon for Japanese artists to include occasional phrases of English here and there, just as it's something that's just popular within the scene. And while I've never necessarily, I've never necessarily hated it on any other Babymetal record, but, well, the problem is Babymetal, their English in general, if you might remember from their last album, they did their first entire full-length song in English, and, you can tell these are not native English speakers, and on this album there's even more English, and it's, I don't know, it's not something I necessarily want to hold against the band like that, but at the same time, it's a distraction. I didn't particularly care for it, and it always pops up in the most random places, too. And in addition to that, while I particularly loved the features on this record, they did make, like I say, they did come and they did make a solid presence, though if you are here for Babymetal, this isn't exactly the Babymetal show. This album has the most features, it has the most deviations from their usual sound, but I don't know, I didn't find it to be a fault, but I could understand if for other potential listeners this could be a problem. And I will also say that this record at 52 minutes is a little bit of a sit. While there are several really good tracks towards the end, I feel like it was just a little too much Babymetal. I was getting a little, by the final 3 tracks, by the time Starlight comes on, that's about when you can kind of shut the album off, because it's kind of done everything it's going to do for you. So while I did enjoy it, it is a bit of a sit compared to some of their other records. I don't know, perhaps it could be that the whole Japanese kawaii metal aesthetic, the thing that this band has built for themselves, is maybe starting to get just a little stale. Like, it's everything you'd expect a Babymetal record to be, let's put it that way. Some standouts on this album, as I would say, definitely include Shanti Shanti Shanti. With its sitar vibes, it puts out a very good sort of Middle Eastern sort of jam. It's very relaxing, very chill. Also Distortion with Alyssa White-Gluz and her cameo, that's a really slamming track. And like I mentioned, Starlight is also definitely a big, if that were the album's closer, I feel like this album would be a lot more, it would have a lot more punch, but it's the second to last closer, and the 2 tracks that come after it just don't match. But at the same time, Starlight is another big one. Oh Majinai, I'm probably mispronouncing that, is also a really, really good track, with its pirate shanty sort of yar har har stuff. It's very, very great. The only tracks I would say that aren't great would be the instrumentals. The album opens with an instrumental called Future Metal. It's okay. It's just 2 minutes of stuff happening. There's another semi-instrumental in the middle of the album called In the Name Of, which it's okay, I guess, but all it is just some atmospherics and some like sort of death growling sort of happening in the background. If this album does have a problem, it feels a teensy bit bloated, but overall the track balance is very good on this record. I would say the good still definitely outweighs the bad, and there is still a lot of potential to be had with these gals. I would say Babymetal have delivered again here, though I wouldn't be lying if I didn't say that perhaps some of that initial sort of sheen that the band had, or that initial sort of I'm not sure shock value is the right word, but that initial pop that we all got when we first became exposed to this group is really showing off as much. I feel like that sort of initial wow factor is starting to dull a bit with the band, but not in a terribly significant way. I still could see a very long future for this act if they decide to do so. And again, even after the tumultuous period they've gone through in losing Yui and everything else, it's nice to see that that hasn't had too much of a negative effect on their performance on this record. Overall, I would say this is still a very solid Babymetal album. I would still sincerely recommend it to you guys, and I am going to be giving this an...
Get on my level, Scrub Lord.
Heyo guys, I'm Crash Thompson and I host The Rock Critic on YouTube. The only opinion that matters is your own, because, you know, we gotta respect everybody's opinion. That's what I say is Crash Thompson. I host it on YouTube, and don't forget to check out my Patreon page as well.
I do not sound like that.
Well guys, you can check out my Patreon over on my Discord. We're doing a stream later this afternoon.
You hush.
Okay.